Hi, good evening, everyone. I'm JP Tong. I'm now in Kechara Forest Retreat, Malaysia, and welcome to Thursday Paranormal Tales. As you can see, today we have Miss Sharon Ong. So Sharon is one of staff of Kechara and a student of His Eminence Ted Rinpoche, who is my late teacher, and I'm very happy, Sharon, that you can be with us this evening. Yeah, so Sharon has a lot of stories that she can share with us. So let's wait for we'll have to wait for a few seconds because then that's where everyone will tune in. Okay, so let's see who's here this evening. Okay, we have King Hoy. Hi, King Hoy. Thank you very much for tuning in. So last week we didn't have the paranormal program because we were all busy with Rinpoche's stupa.
Yes.
Yeah, so we managed to complete the indoor stupa, so that was very exciting.
Yes, that was really, really something to be to be happy about.
Definitely, yeah, definitely, because everybody worked very, very hard
Yes.
to get it done on time.
You know what's funny?
Yeah.
I used to follow your show, and I'm on the show now.
Yeah, I showed up. You never know. You never know. So
Yeah.
any one of you can will maybe invite it. If you have a good story, if you have several good stories that you can share, then do let me know. Then I'll be more than happy to invite you, so that I can interview you, and then you can share with the world about your experience. All right. So, hi, Yiman, David. Hi, Pastor Shin. That's Tata and Jacinta. Chung, hello. Thank you very much for tuning in. So okay, so well, you've had quite a you've had a few. I'm like stuttering today. I don't know why. It's been too long. You've had quite a number of experiences since you were a kid, right? And
Yes.
that's one that you told me that you were around 4 or 5 years old, right? And that was in Kluang.
Yeah.
Yeah, where's Kluang is south of Malaysia, right? In Johor.
Yes, yes. Keluang is I think probably a few hours away from Malacca.
Okay.
My dad was actually working in a plantation, so he was based around Kluang. So we were renting this shop lot, and in that shop lot, I always had this uneasy feeling in that place. It's got like this really heavy energies and all that.
And you can remember even when you were 4 or 5 years old.
Yes,
Why is that?
some things it just burns in your brain and your memory, and you don't really forget. I actually
Okay.
have memories as far back as maybe 3, but that was unverified, so I will not share with it.
Okay.
But this one, I remember it specifically because I can still see the being right now. I still remember what he looks like. He was this man. He's not very tall, Chinese, Japanese looking kind of man. He used to look into our room. I used to share a room with my brother when we were young because there was only 2 rooms in the shop lot.
All right.
And those days the windows were like those pane.
Yeah.
Yeah. So he used to look in. Sometimes I can see his face. Sometimes when the window is like totally shut, I will see a bit blurry. But somehow my brother never saw him.
So
But-
what, he was standing outside of the window?
Outside of the window looking in. He never said anything. He was just looking in. But being at that age, it terrified me because I didn't know who he was.
Okay.
Yeah. So I was really, really freaked out, like practically every night, and I will rush to my parents' room, and my mom would try and say, "Oh no, go to sleep. It's probably nothing. It could be your imagination."
Mm-hmm.
And the reason why I discovered was because my mom didn't want me to feel afraid, and like you, for some years, I actually questioned my own sanity.
Yeah.
Because I do see stuff, but because people keep saying that, oh, it's your imagination, blah blah, so I did question my sanity until much later when I learned how to trust what I saw.
I see. So just going back to what you said, so when you saw that old man standing outside your window, your brother could not see it at all, and
No.
he said, like, there's nothing, right?
Yes,
But you clearly saw him.
I clearly saw
And
him.
what was he doing outside your window?
He was just staring in, looking at us, and
Did he say anything?
no, nothing.
He didn't make any sound, or
Nothing. He just stood there and looked at us.
and this went on for how many years?
I have no idea actually. Oh gosh, I'm having goosebumps as I speak. Yeah, it went on for some years, and because we lived there for maybe 1 or 2 years,
Okay.
it kept happening, and then years later, my mom did reveal that that shop lot was the place where the Japanese, during the Japanese occupation, they actually killed a lot of people there.
In the house.
Yes, in
Oh,
that
wow.
shop lot.
In that shop lot.
Yes.
And how did she find out?
I guess the neighbors told her, and she just, she didn't want to reveal, to scare us until much later. Kind
Yeah,
of
that would be very scary to
I
know
know.
that many people were killed in the house that you
yes.
stay.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's very scary.
Yes.
Okay, so wow, so your very first experience was around 4 to 5, but you said there was one at 3 years old, right? So but you
Yes.
weren't quite sure. Then after that, subsequently, this is when you were a teenager, right? And then you said that you actually moved to Tawau. Where's Tawau?
Tawau is this town in Sabah. At that time, I had followed my father, who was transferred to Tawau,
Okay.
and I was schooling there. And then I remember I was in Form 5 at that time, and I was reading the papers. And you know how when you're reading something, and then if somebody passes at the side,
Yeah.
you would know, you will feel, and you will probably see. So out of the corner of my eye, I actually saw this Malay-looking man dressed in like a warrior, complete with his Malay headgear called Tenggolok.
Mm-hmm.
And initially, I was like, "Who's that guy? He looks a bit like our night watchman."
Okay.
He had, because they
He
had
had
this
a
similar.
warrior outfit as well,
Because
or he looks similar because of his looks.
look similar because they both had beard and
Okay.
mustache and longish kind of hair.
All right.
So I was like, what's he doing up here? You know, normally he doesn't come up to our living quarters and all that. So I actually stood up. I went to our living room to see. I was curious. I mean, at that point in time, I was scared, but still curious. You know, I wanted to see what it was. Then there was nobody. I was all alone. My dad was at work. My mom was in town. And then when I opened the door to see anybody's outside,
Yeah.
I just saw my night watchman coming in through our driveway, and I called out to him, "Have you been here all this while?" He said, No, I just arrived." And I was like, what did I see?
So that being was actually in your house.
Yes.
That you saw.
Yes. He was probably just passing by.
Was it the only time that you saw?
That was
being?
the clearest one I saw.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that was the clearest one.
And what did it do?
He was just walking.
Past your house,
Yeah, across.
right through your house.
Yeah, across from my living room into our kitchen. So I was like, "Who's that?" And yeah.
Okay, and ever since then,
Ever since then, you know how estate houses now I'm going to reveal because we've moved out, and somehow the plantation houses, because they are old and all that, a lot of the houses that we stayed in had friends.
had friends. Okay.
Yeah, like the one in Tampin.
Okay.
Yeah, I was telling you about this really old house earlier.
Yeah.
It's about like 80 years at that point of time. It could be about 100 years. It's like this really huge mansion, I would say.
Okay.
Really old and all
Okay.
that. And there was this one huge big room. It was so big that you can play badminton in it. My brother and I used to play badminton in it because it's
Wow.
big.
Okay.
Because that used to be an office
Okay.
in the olden days.
All right.
So somehow that big room had something in it that many of my family members or my friends who came to visit refused to sleep in it.
Okay.
But one day my cousins came to visit, and they decided to sleep in my room.
Okay.
And I had to sleep in the big room, okay, because nobody wanted to sleep in the big room.
But the room is so big. It's bigger than the badminton court.
Yeah, it was. But, you know, being the host, you have to give up the room to your guests. Yeah, so I did. I mean, I was a bit scared, but I was like, never mind, I'm just going to sleep for the night kind of thing, you know.
Yeah.
So I just went in. When I turned off the lights, oh my God, it was scary because I could feel there was this thing that looks like a black werewolf looking right at me, and I was like, oh my God, don't do anything to me, you know. I don't know what to do. At that point in time, I wasn't even a Buddhist.
Did you think it was a real animal in your room at that time, or you knew it was not an animal?
Actually, at that point of time, I was so scared I couldn't even think properly, you know. All I wanted to do is like, please go away, please go away, please go away kind of thing.
Wow.
So what I did was I took my blanket, I just covered my head, and I like prayed for the, I said, God, please don't let it come and bite me or kill me during the night, you know. So yeah, thankfully nothing happened.
Were you alone at that time?
I was alone.
Oh,
Nobody
wow.
wanted to sleep with me in that room.
Oh no. I'd be afraid that, you know, there's like a wild dog or something, you're right?
No, but I knew it wasn't a real animal, but it was like kind of like a spirit or something, like a ghost or something.
Why would you say that?
Because normally if it's a real animal, they have heat, they have smell, and their energies are different.
Okay.
For me, if it's not a real animal or person, the vibes, the energies are different.
Very, very different.
Yes, correct.
Okay. And so could you see through the animal? Was it like a
It was
hologram?
pretty solid. I was surprised it was pretty solid, but I shut my eyes quickly because I was just too scared. I was like, what did I see? Oh no, I don't want to see, you know. I was like trying to be in self-denial, you know. Then I was like, oh, it's still there. I'm going to shut my eyes and pretend it's not there, you know. Hopefully it will go away, you know.
So did it eventually go away?
I have no idea because the blanket was and I somehow fell asleep. And then the next morning, curiously, I had weird bruises on my legs, and I don't recall hitting my legs anywhere and all that. And the bruises were at places that is not like your knees or your shin. It's like behind my knee. How am I going to hit behind my knee?
Wow.
Yeah, it's just really strange. And it didn't hurt. You know, when you have a bump, your bruise actually hurts. And this one, nothing, no pain.
Oh, okay.
So, yeah.
And was that the only time that you saw this wolf?
Thankfully, yes. But the bruising happened a few times whenever I slept there. I slept in that room. Yeah.
And do you remember anything touching you when you were sleeping there?
Probably, no, I don't recall anything touching me. I don't recall anything touching me, but it's just there.
Okay. And you slept there
Sometimes.
many years?
No, I actually have another room, but occasionally I will sleep there because people use my room because they know that room is not very comfortable to sleep in. So I normally will let people sleep in my room.
And then you sleep there. And how old were you at that time?
I was in college at that time, and probably about my 20, 21.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you're almost like a adult. So you were fully aware of what you were seeing and your experience.
Correct.
Right. And in that same house, you were.
Oh yeah.
You had other experiences as well, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
I remember in those days I used to come back quite often during the weekends, college, you know. And one weekend I was packing to go back to KL, and as I was packing, I heard footsteps. Because it's a wooden house, so footsteps you can hear quite. Yeah. So I heard two footsteps, and I thought it was my mom and my sister. Then I called out to my mom. I just said, "Hey, where's my towel?" Because I was like rushing, and then she was very quiet. I didn't hear anything, so I thought she didn't hear. So I yelled a bit louder, "Mom, where's my towel?"
Yeah.
And it was silence. I was like, how come she didn't hear me, you know? So I thought, okay, fine. I got a little irritated because I was rushing already. So I went downstairs. I went to the kitchen. I said, "Mom, didn't you hear me?" And my sister and my mom like, "What? You hear all the time, you know?"
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, "You didn't go upstairs?" I said, "No." And I went like, "Oh." But I didn't say anything because my sister was still young. I didn't want to freak her out.
Okay.
Yeah. So I knew there was something there. I mean, two things there now. Besides that beast creature thingy, you know.
Wow.
Yeah.
But do you know what it is? Was it footsteps of a human being or an animal?
It was it was like a human adult and a little one,
A human adult and
and a smaller.
like a child.
Yes. That's why I thought it was my mom and my sister. At that time, my sister was in primary school.
Okay.
So, yeah, that's why I thought it was them.
And was that the only time that you heard the footsteps?
That was the clearest.
Uh-huh.
Other times, I did hear footsteps, but I thought it was my sister or my mom. So, I probably just brushed it off and didn't really notice. But that was
The one that you checked and
yeah,
you
I actually
asked, right?
yeah, correct. I checked.
Wow. So it looks like the houses that you moved when you were young are all haunted, yeah?
I think in plantation houses, because many of these houses were made like more than 50 years and all that, and I'm sure there have been happenings before we moved in. So I'm sure there will be some of the beings who are attached to that place
Uh-huh.
that didn't want to or didn't know where to go. So they generally hung around that place kind of thing.
Okay. And did
Yeah.
they cause any harm to you or your family members?
It's not harm as in physical harm or anything, but yeah, it caused like shocks and uneasy feelings and all that.
But there was no disturbance or nobody felt sick.
No,
For, you know.
No, none of them fell sick. Not that I can see the correlation. No.
I see.
Yeah.
Okay. Now then, moving along, you told me something about your Klang, about your house in Klang. You've been moving quite a lot.
Yes, I moved a lot
From
because
Sabah to South Malaysia and then now to Klang. And this is when you were married already, right? So you
Yes.
were married and then you live in Klang.
yes.
Okay, can you tell us about what happened in Klang?
When I was a child, my mom was pregnant. This was and she was about 5 or 6 months pregnant.
Uh-huh.
And then there was a snake outside of our house because we were at that time staying in another estate,
All right.
plantation, right? So after she killed the snake, the baby inside her womb died. And years later, I discovered that it was my brother. And what I didn't know that... you see, when my kids were small, right, I would teach them how to keep their toys and all that. And the next morning, somehow the toys were messed up and their tricycle will be somewhere else. And I will scold my kids, why didn't you keep your toys, you know? Didn't I tell you to do this, blah, blah, blah? And they were like, but we did, Mom. Mommy, we did, you know? And then somehow later on, I discovered there was a little boy spirit that was hanging around in our house, and my kids actually saw him.
How did you discover that there was a little boy spirit?
We went to ask a medium. This was before I joined Kechara.
What prompted you to ask a medium?
Because I think it was a bit strange to have seeing things and all that kind of thing. So it was strange to me, and I wanted to. At that time, I didn't know much about all this spirit, but I didn't want it to harm my boys. I wanted.
But how do you know that there was a spirit in the first place?
I saw, my kids saw, and even my
You
husband.
saw a little boy.
Yes, a little boy, and both my boys actually saw what he wore exactly the same. They even a few days ago when I asked them, they could still remember what the little boy was wearing. They both said blue pajamas with Garfield prints on it.
Okay.
So and for me personally, I've seen him more than once, 2-3 times, and it's usually when I'm cooking in the kitchen. My kitchen door opens out to our garden at the side,
Yeah.
and I will see him running, and sometimes it's so clear he's running really really fast.
During the day.
Mostly evening when I'm cooking dinner.
Okay.
Yeah, and I've seen him as well, and when I describe him, it actually matches to what my kids saw and what my husband saw as well.
Okay. And how old
My
do you
children.
think that the kid was?
Oh, the little boy was about 5 or 6, about the same age as my older boy.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you asked the medium, and the medium.
I actually asked the medium, who is this little, and he said it's your brother. But I said can't be, because my brother was a baby in the stomach, and his explanations was that spirits actually grow, but in a very different rate from a human being.
Okay.
So we've seen him. We've thankfully with some prayers, we don't see him anymore. We were told to do 3 years of prayers for him so that he can,
What type of prayers did you do?
I have no idea. It was something in the temple. At
Was
that
it a
point of
Taoist
time,
temple or a Buddhist temple?
I think it was a Taoist temple.
Okay.
All we did was to give a certain sum of money to the medium, and they will just do it for us.
Okay.
Yeah. So, we don't see him anymore. So we assume he has gone to a better place, I hope.
Okay. But did you share with your mother about
Yes.
about that?
I did.
Okay. And what did she say?
She's one of the things she mentioned, that maybe you're the older sister, that's why he's following you around.
And did she relate to the Garfield print on his pajamas? Was
I
he
don't think
wearing
she
that?
actually saw him.
No,
my mom.
like maybe because he was stillborn, right? Was he dressed in a Garfield pajama?
In those days, there was no Garfield.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, let's see, it was. I would have been like a toddler. When we were toddlers, I don't think there was Garfield yet. Garfield came much later, about my kids' time, I guess.
Oh no, there was
Yeah,
Garfield.
There was Garfield?
That was
Wait,
Garfield. Yeah,
oh my
there was
goodness.
Garfield already.
Gosh.
Yeah, and this is your older brother or your younger brother? If
My
he
younger
survived?
brother. I'm the oldest.
Okay.
So this younger brother is actually after the second sibling. After that,
Which will be how many years younger than you?
should be about 4 years.
Oh yeah,
maybe.
that was Garfield.
There was Garfield.
Because my brother is 5 years my junior, and I remember that there was Garfield at that
I
time.
see. But the thing is, at that point of time, we were really poor, so I don't think Garfield was one of the things we would have gotten. I mean, clothes.
I'm just curious if there is any correlation with the Garfield print pajamas.
That's interesting. Maybe oh,
Right? Why would he be wearing a Garfield print pajama
Yeah,
of all pajamas?
But when I saw him, one of the it was another print. It was a teddy bear print,
Okay.
a common teddy bear. Yeah.
Okay. You see, that's how my mind works. I'm like, what's the correlation? Was he
Garfield.
buried in that pajama?
I don't think there was anything, because he was a fetus.
A fetus, right?
Yeah, he was just a fetus. We didn't even have a name for him,
Oh.
and we initially thought she's a girl. But years later, when we went to check about this spirit happening and all that,
Yeah.
we discovered it's a boy.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay. Wow, that's interesting. So yeah, I've heard people saying that there are children following them and things like that. And I've had even remember during my sharing about the Ladrong in LA.
Mm.
We were with Rinpoche, and there was this girl. There's a little small girl that would kept coming into the bathroom.
Oh.
Yeah, yeah, and I think somebody saw it too. I think, was it you who saw it, Pastor Jinai?
The girl?
The little girl in LA?
Yeah.
You saw her or you sensed her?
I saw her.
You saw her running around, right?
Not
Yeah.
running around. I saw her picking up and then like looking at me, and then when I turned, she would go back.
Yeah. So that was the few, and I know that child spirits are, just like children. They will be running
Yes.
around and
Yes.
having fun and like playing tricks on you and
Yeah.
and things like
And
that.
and they want to play toys just like my
Yeah.
kids. That's why I initially thought my kids were just being messy. It was my brother, my spirit brother.
Wow, for
Yeah.
him, do you know, for him to actually take that physical toy out, that is pretty strong. Yeah,
But he wasn't
very powerful.
Yeah, but he didn't harm us as in like slap us around or something like that. He was
Mhm.
just mischievous in
Yeah.
a way, and because I do sense the energy of a young kid, like he's mischievous, he wants to play kind of thing, but he's not an evil or bad.
Yeah.
Yeah, because when you are faced with something evil, I'm sure that the energy will be different.
Have you faced any
Thank
spirits?
God, no. I
Never.
no, I've not actually encountered evil yet. I hope not.
Yet.
Ever.
Yet. So when you do, I'll invite you back.
No, I'll take the ruin.
You have a rule, is it? Okay,
Yeah.
so then now you also shared that then thereafter you've had other experiences as well, like such as the 7th month.
Oh, yes, the 7th month.
Yeah.
In those days, we were told that it would be good to, burn joss papers for our dearly departed. This was pre-Kechara days, So, one of the 7 months, I was burning joss papers with my husband. As I was burning, I could see this elderly lady, about 60 to 70.
Yeah.
She was having difficulty walking and really slowly. And there was another younger lady who was assisting her.
Mm-hmm.
So I was thinking in my head as I was burning, why is this lady having her evening walk so late in the night, I would say that was like about 9 or 10.
At night.
Yes. So after we finished burning, we went into the house. Then I casually asked my husband, I said, hey, did you see that old lady? I thought she looks like Amma a bit, Amma is my husband's late grandmother.
Okay.
They had that similar build and all that. See, do you see that old lady that was walking? She looked a bit like Amma, And he went like, what old lady? I'm like, oh. I said, you didn't see anybody? No. And I was like, what did I see? And I'm like, okay, I'm just going to forget about it.
How
So-
far was that old lady?
How far? She was like maybe 20 feet away.
That's
30.
not that far.
No, it wasn't. It was like a few doors from our house. It was on the same street where we were living. I was like here, and she was just like 20-30 feet away. I could see her walking.
Mm-hmm. And she was walking towards you.
Yes.
And did she actually get to you?
No, before she could reach us, we finished burning and we went in. And I didn't see her like going in anywhere.
And you didn't like call
No, I
out
did-
to her,
because she didn't look like any of the neighbors. I thought
and you didn't look at her and say like wondering what she's doing.
I took a look at her. I remember her passing some street lamps, and then she looked like a normal old lady walking slowly with the lady, and I was like, what is she doing? She just looked like Amma,
Uh-huh.
Then after that, I continued burning, and all I wanted to do is finish burning the thing because it was getting really hot. Yeah.
Okay, and then and that was I guess it was during the Hungry Ghost Festival, is it?
Yes, that was during the 7th month. I remember
We're
because
still in the 7th month, by the way. So are you still burning those paper
No, no,
offerings?
no. I discovered that, you know, it's better for us to dedicate merits to our dearly departed so that they can have a better rebirth.
Why, why the change of the way you do your prayers?
Because in those days I was pretty much a Wesak Day Buddhist or Buddhist on paper. I didn't know anything.
Uh-huh.
I didn't know what merits were. I didn't know about spirits, why they were like that, and this and that. But after I came to Kechara, I learned a bit more,
Uh-huh.
and the best way to actually help them is to dedicate as much merits as possible, so that they get out of that state of suffering faster.
But how do you know that it actually works? Have you had experiences?
I wish I had these tools and methods when I was facing this kind of like my brother and all that. Then I would have something solid to tell you. But
But now that you have joined Kechara, have you experienced that when you generate merits through prayers, that things actually change?
yes, it is not just for somehow after I dedicate merits, right? I have a sense that the deceased either have they feel their energies are more peaceful.
Mm-hmm.
I don't really know how to say this, but it feels as if they have gone to a better place, or they're happier. I'm not
They
sure
are
whether
happier.
I'm not sure whether it makes I'm saying it correctly, but after I do prayers for certain people and all that, I do sang offering or light offering or pujas for certain dearly departed, I have this sense of peace that they will be all right, especially when I pray to my protector, Turje Shubden, to guide them and, you know, lead them to a better rebirth. I feel a sense of peace that, yeah, they will probably be all right.
Okay. So, and that would actually makes, well, I guess because you told me that when you moved to your house in Bentong, can you tell us more about that?
Oh yeah. Okay. When I first moved to Bentong, we were in this house and there was some friends, and initially it was I sensed there was something there, but it wasn't anything to be worried, because spirits come and go and all that. Sometimes they just linger, and because, you know, we must understand that we are actually in their space, and some of them have been there for ages. Where I live is like on a hill, and it used to be a forest, so I'm sure there are spirits there. So it was all okay. I was told to do sang and all that, and strangely, I usually leave my sang container on my
Your
balcony.
incense.
Yeah,
Okay.
my incense. Then I will let it cool before I touch it again.
Yeah.
And then the next day after I came back from work, it was on the ground floor. I was like,
The incense holder.
correct. The incense holder was on ground floor. And I was like, then I asked my kids, did you bring it down? You know, the kids went like, no, mom. And then when I went to look at it, it looks as if somebody had brought it down. The ashes were quite neat, you know. Then the second time it happened, I was going to do my incense offering again, and I couldn't find the container, you know. I was like, so I asked the kids, hey, did you take it or not, you know? They said no. Then suddenly I peeped over my balcony. I saw it on the ground floor again. And initially I thought the wind might have blown it away because it was quite a light container. But when I looked over, there was no ashes strewn, and the ashes were still nicely in the container, which was, I was like, oh, okay, this is something else. Then one night I was having dinner with my kids, and I felt this hand thing, whatever, touching my hair like this, and I was like, what in the world is that? I was like,
Was it your husband?
he wasn't at home, he was working. And I was like, oi, what is that? And when it happened 2-3 times, I was like, okay, this is not happening to me, you know?
And your children were around.
Yeah, they were eating, and they noticed that I was silent for a while, and they were like, Mommy, why are you okay? Then I didn't want to freak them out at the moment, so I said, oh, the pan mi is still very hot. So they will continue eating. Then after that I said, okay, this is something I need to deal with. So I spoke to my boss, and one of the things she told me to do was to get Dukar, your favorite.
Who's your boss? You have to tell everybody. Nobody knows who your boss is, right?
My boss, Beng Kui,
Beng
told
Kui.
me to energize Dukar and stick it at the top of my bed.
Okay, so just for everyone's sake, if you don't know who Beng Kui is one of the directors of Kechara. She's one of our colleagues here. So she advised you to
Stick the Dukar.
stick an image of Dukar.
Yes, an image
white
of
umbrella.
Dukar. Yes, white umbrella, known for.
It's a Buddha called white umbrella. Yeah, it's not a picture of a white umbrella. So just in case you're wondering, and then tomorrow your people printing
white
an
umbrella.
image of a umbrella
Okay.
in a color of white. So no, it's not. It is a
No.
yeah. So it's Dukar, Dukkar, which I spoke about. Remember when I first started with my program, and it was in my bedroom, and there was a green image, a
Yes.
poster
I
that
remember
is
that,
that is a funky version of the Buddha
Yeah,
Dukar,
yeah.
very funky version. So that's Dukar. Okay, so you printed an image of Dukar, and then you said you energized it. How did you energize it?
We basically do the prayer and invite Dukar to reside inside the image,
Okay,
like energize it. And,
all right.
Yeah.
And what do you do with the image?
I stuck it above my bed.
Okay,
Yeah, so I actually stuck everywhere.
in every part of your house.
Almost.
Okay.
My room, the kids' room, the kitchen, wherever I felt that needed some dukkha energy kind of thing. And also, I did a house blessing because I was told a house blessing would help, which it did.
Okay.
Yeah, so the puja.
How did you do a house blessing?
So basically, I just called the puja house and I said I need a house blessing. So they arranged a date and a time and all that. So a bunch of them came and they did Doja Shukdan Puja, and then
Okay.
after that they did incense offering, and they also did some blessings using the blessed rice. Basically they sprinkle everywhere in the house, every part of the house, even in my garden. Glad to say that after the house blessing, all was jolly well and good.
So nobody played with your hair.
Oh,
How's
thank
that?
God, no. Now no more hair.
No more hair.
Yeah, it used to be a bit longer, so it was like, it gave me the chills down my spine that I was actually like, yeah.
Okay, so that's good. So again, Puja House is one of the departments. It's actually it's a department that offers prayer services in Kechara. As we call it Puja House. So now going back to what I was saying about merits. So when we do prayers, we actually generate merits, which
correct.
is which is good energy. And that is dedicated, usually at the end of the prayers, is actually dedicated to the being there and whatever beings that are there, and of course the people who are staying there as well.
Yes.
So you generate merits and you dedicate to them. So
Yes.
as a result, after you've dedicated merits to them, there will no longer spirit disturbance.
No.
What do you make out of that?
I would say probably the merits has helped them maybe find peace, and they probably went where they were supposed to go.
But what if they're very attached to the house that you're in, because as you said, because your house is built, in the jungle, so perhaps they'll be there for a long time, 100 over years perhaps, and so happened that somebody built a house there. So, what do you think now that you're in Kechara? Test time. It's test time. So, what do you think? No right, no wrong, but based on your whatever that you've learned and your feelings, why is it that all of a sudden things calm down?
It could mean that maybe the tremendous merits that is generated through prayers and all that have helped them get out of that state. Because
Okay.
sometimes, you know how merits can actually help, like make our lives smooth, or help us overcome an obstacle or like that. Probably with the spirits, this merit helped them come out of that state, and maybe they took a rebirth, a better rebirth,
Okay.
and that's why you don't feel them anymore.
So you don't feel them anymore.
I moved house anyway.
Oh, you moved house again. My goodness, Sharon, you've been constantly moving throughout your life.
Yes, oh my goodness.
You're a
now-
nomad.
Yes, I am.
Wow.
Humans are nomads.
Okay, so, but as you said, after the house blessing,
Yeah.
everything was calm, and you
There
didn't
was
feel
no incidents, nothing.
any presence, nothing, right?
No.
Okay, so
But I think also because the people who did the puja themselves had a very sincere wish to help. That I feel helps make the puja even more powerful.
the sincerity
Yes.
of the people.
Yes.
Why would you say that?
Because when you have a pure wish to help others, that's compassion. And I believe you have mentioned a few times, compassion always will help in any situation. Because I think spirits can feel compassion as well.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah, so when they feel compassion, they will probably just leave us alone. They will think like, okay, I shall leave them alone, I shall go somewhere else.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But I really think the merits will actually help them a lot.
Okay. Well, see, that's a personal experience. No right, no wrong. But it's just your experience that everything calmed down, which to you was most important
Yes.
at that point of time,
Yes,
right?
correct.
Okay. And then you said that this is after you moved to Bentong, that your son had an encounter. Can you tell us about that?
That's okay. He was about 12, and in his school there is this abandoned teacher's toilet,
Okay.
and there were rumors initially about that place being haunted. And when I visit his school, whenever I pass that, it kind of like I feel very uneasy, and I kind of sense that maybe there's something there.
Mm-hmm.
So one day my son actually saw something, really saw something, and when I picked him up from school that day, he was like so utterly terrified. He was actually shaking when he got in the car. I said, "What happened to you?" He said, "Oh my God, Mommy, I don't know what I saw." Then after that, I said, "Okay, calm down, tell me." And then he said, he was describing that, he said, "I think I saw a hungry ghost." Then I said, "How do you know?" He said, "Mommy, you told me you showed me the picture in the Lamrim. Lamrim is our Buddhist Bible." And he remembered what a hungry ghost looked like. I said, "Okay." In my heart, I was like thinking like, "Oh, thank God he remembered something I told him." But
What?
I was a bit worried about him because he was like shaking, like he was so terrified, and he doesn't get terrified that easily,
Yeah.
And he said, "Mommy, she looks so extremely miserable. I want to help her." I'm like, how do you want to help her? And he said, "Maybe I can use your blessed rice." I said, then part of me was like a bit scared because we don't know what we're dealing with.
Yes.
Part of me was He said, Mommy, if I don't help her, she is so miserable. I feel I need to help her.
Okay.
I said, okay. So I gave him my Tibetan rule on a protector string
Okay.
to wear, and I gave him the blessed rice, and I told him, chant Dorje Shugden mantra, blow it, and then you throw it into the space. I said, if you cannot remember anything because you freaked out, just think about Rinpoche, our guru. Just think about Rinpoche, recite his mantra or something like that, you know. Just think of something, think of Rinpoche. So the next day, he after school, I picked him up. He was still shaking, but not as much. Not as much.
Poor kid.
He was scared. But the thing is, he felt that he just needed to help that thing he saw.
Well, that's very nice of your son.
Yeah,
Because usually children will just freak out and just run away.
it was an instinct, I think, to just help, kind of
Okay.
thing. Yeah. So he just wanted to help because she just looked really miserable and sad and all that. After he threw the rice, he mentioned
At the
that
being.
because he said, I'm not going to throw at her because I'm already freaked out. I'm just going to throw into the thing and hope for the best, you know, and run away.
But where was the spirit? In the abandoned...
In the abandoned toilet.
Oh, okay.
So what he did was he chanted some mantra, and then he just threw it
Threw it in.
into that area, and then a strange thing happened. He actually saw the hungry ghost from a sad, miserable space. She actually smiled at him, and then there was a blinding light, and then he told
Where
me
was the blinding light coming from?
in that bathroom itself,
There was a blinding light.
Yeah, after he threw the rice, right, and then there was a blinding light, and he was like, "What's happening?" And then after the light faded, the being was gone.
Oh,
And then I asked some of the pastors.
yes.
The pastor said that probably because the rice is blessed by Dorje Shugden has probably helped her go somewhere better, maybe take a better rebirth.
Wow. Well, that's a very nice story.
But what I actually forgot to mention earlier was when he was faced, that split second he was so scared, right, with the being. Before he threw the rice, he told the being this, and I still recall very clearly. He said, I don't know how to help you, but look into my heart. My guru is there. Sam Rinpoche is in Kechara Forest Retreat. He will know how to help you. Go find him there. And I was like, wow, you said that.
Who taught him that?
I think it came out from him. I didn't really specifically say that.
Was he attending our Buddhist classes?
He was one of the Dharma class kids in the earlier days when they went in
I think he
primary
must
school.
have learned it there
Probably.
somehow. Because for a child, I mean, if you're not exposed to this, you won't have that. You won't even think, to actually look inside his heart, because that's how that we teach the children. When we think of our teacher, and even in some of our prayers, we visualize the teacher residing in the heart
Yes,
area,
correct.
right? That's where the mind resides.
Mm.
Because the spirit, when they see, the spirit will always check our mind.
Mm.
So that's why when we think of either a Buddha image, or we think of our Buddhist teacher, then what they will actually see what is in our mind. They'll see what's in our mind.
Yeah.
That's why when they see a holy being, that's where they calm down. They see what they see is just compassion.
Yes.
You see, and that's how powerful
Yeah.
it is. So for him, you see, that's why it's very important. Like my teacher says, it's very, very important to actually start the kids
Yes.
with some spiritual knowledge, because you don't know when they'll need it, but it sticks
Exactly.
in their mind.
Yes.
And in this instance, for your son to even have such a kind thought that, oh, I must do something because this spirit, this hungry ghost, is actually very, very sad.
Yes.
And you see, because you also, shared with him about pictures of the hungry ghosts, or whatever it is that you learn in the Buddhist scriptures, that when you share with your children, it would actually stay with them when you least expect it. Sometimes you think they don't listen, right?
Exactly.
And then they actually listen. That's why, you see, that's what Rinpoche always says. Always, when we as adults practice whatever faith it is, and when we introduce that to the children, something will stay.
Yeah.
And then that's when you least expect it, that's where
Correct.
they get to do all these things,
Correct.
which
Exactly.
is wonderful.
Yeah.
It's really wonderful. So wow, that's a very interesting story, to see the white light come.
I've never encountered or heard something like that until he told me. I was like, wow. And I was like, what's that white light? No, I mean, then I went to check to ask. I asked the pastors and they told me, yeah. Then I was like, oh yeah, makes sense. Because the blessed rice is energized, was energized through trance, and all the powerful energies from the protector is in there. And I've also heard my colleagues who have spirits problem, the moment they burn the rice, they suddenly feel a change in energy. Because sometimes when there's spirits around, the energy just feels off.
Yes,
As soon as they burn the rice, the energy just goes.
definitely. Because you see, when we burn the rice, what actually happens is you actually invite
Correct.
the protector to come to bless the place. That's why if you get a hold of the protector rice, it's actually extremely valuable.
Yes.
And we don't use it. I don't use it until I really need it, because we only have that number of rice grains that are blessed. So definitely was, and that's why we use that rice when the puja team goes for the house blessing, because that is actually directly inviting the protector to come and bless the entire premise.
Yes, that's right.
And that's such a touching story.
I never leave home without my protector rice. I can leave home without my Visa or my MasterCard, but never leave home without my protector rice.
Okay, that's a good one. I think there is a question here. Okay. This is from Stanley. Hi, Stanley. Thank you for tuning in. So Stanley asks, does green tara dispel spirits? Do you know?
I think all Buddhas can dispel spirit, because essentially Buddhas are compassionate by nature. So I think,
Yes.
can.
Yes. Because tara has 21 emanations. So, and any Buddhas, because again, as what Sharon said, they are pure compassion. So definitely when the spirits see any Buddhas, they would immediately calm down. They will be dispelled if they have evil intentions.
Correct.
Always, they will just repel.
Yeah.
And that's what happens. Do we have any questions so far for Sharon? Pastor David says, wow, that was amazing. Well done, Eldon. And Chan Waiki says, touching story, thanks for sharing. Yes, and Waiting says, oh, Sharon, your son is so kind. Bravo, Eldon. Yeah, I'm actually surprised that, in a happy way, that your younger son can think on that level. Because, when you're kids, you'd be freaking out already, and you'd be so immersed, in your fear that you don't even think about how to help the being.
I was surprised that he actually overcame that fear to actually do something to help. Yeah, I mean personally, I think many adults wouldn't even think about helping. Yeah, but I'm glad that he managed to overcome that fear to help.
Well, you see, even with your story, you said when you saw that wolf, you were
Right, I was
you were so
freaking
scared.
out.
You couldn't think of anything except just to hide
Yes,
yourself.
correct. Yeah. But I think if I had the knowledge, if that had happened after I joined Kechara, it would have been
Different, right?
Yes, it would have been different.
because of the knowledge.
Yes.
Because now you know how to help
I would-
effectively.
yeah, correct. I would probably have done what you have done, blow mantras at them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, see, so that's why it's very important that if you want to inspire your children on whichever spiritual path that you are practicing, actually it has to come from the parent, and the parent has to be consistent, and it has to be part of their daily lifestyle, because only then will some of that knowledge rub off to the child. Otherwise, if we don't put enough focus and attention to our spiritual practice, then to them it's not important, and because subtly through your actions they think that, okay, since mom and dad are so nonchalant about it, I guess it's not so important, and I guess I'd rather just play my video games or go on Instagram or whatever. But because you are doing this full time, you're here all the time, and you and your husband come for the prayer session, so, and they even hang out here. They they even
Yes.
used to hang out with me in this room. This used to be my office, so they used to lay here and take a nap after school. So something must have rubbed off that, okay, spiritual practice or spiritual knowledge is important, because mom and dad is focusing so much on this, so something must be good. So having said that, so that's how we inspire children, because otherwise if you keep telling them, then you're just preaching, because then and I remember very, very clearly, this is like 10 years ago when we first started having children classes, and I would go there and talk to the teachers, and I was invited to give away gifts because of of some competition that the kids class had. So they invited me to represent Rinpoche, to go there and give away gifts. So as I was talking to the teachers, they were sharing with me that and they were surprised, because they said you'd be shocked, because you think that a 5 or 6 year old child wouldn't know what's going on. But once the parent leaves the classroom, then when they were doing a lot of sharing, because some of the children were not very cooperative at home, so the teacher was given a heads up. So when they were doing a lot of sharing and all that, and the teacher actually told me, you'd be surprised, JP, because they would tell me, oh, my mom or my dad would tell me to be responsible and to do my prayers and this and that. But they don't do it consistently. So why do I need to do it?
Correct.
So in a nutshell, it's literally monkey see, monkey do.
You need to walk the talk.
And walk the talk. So if the parent is always going around having fun, eating, enjoying their lives, to them, that's how they perceive as what they should focus on.
Correct.
So as a result, that's what they would do. Yeah. So coming back to our topic, which is paranormal, if we in this instance, so it looks like your entire family has an affinity with spirits, right?
I guess so.
Your husband, your children, your side of the family, I guess.
Both sides of the family have family members who can feel or hear and see.
Okay, so the more so the spiritual practice, so that
Correct.
so that if you do get attacked
You know
by
what to
spirits
do.
that with evil intention, you will know what to do without freaking out, and do what is necessary to even bless them. To bless them so that they'll calm down and leave you alone.
Yeah.
and leave you alone because, well, I've had my fair share with evil spirits who try to scare me and hurt me. So, yeah. So, so I did my prayers, thank goodness, and bless them. And immediately you see them literally pounce off
Yeah.
of you because they were pressing me down. Remember
Yeah.
my story with that green monster?
Yeah.
When we were moving out of the LA Ladrong, and it was just so. It was pure evil. Pure evil. Evil in the sense that they wanted to do harm. Okay? And I could feel how dense the energy was, and it was just trying to scare me and trying to hurt me.
Yeah.
But thank goodness I did Dory Shugden's Chakse, the mantra, which is the most wrathful mantra of Dory Shugden, and I managed to recite it, and I just blew onto the entity to bless it. Immediately the thing just pounced off
Wow.
of me. So that helps. So that's why consistency does matter, because sometimes if we're not consistent with our prayers, we will forget.
Correct.
We will forget and go, oh, what's that mantra again?
Yeah,
And it's
yeah,
too
yeah.
late, and because you're like stuck there, and it's too late.
Yeah, yeah,
Right.
correct.
So
That's why I keep telling my kids, you need to do your prayers regularly, because prayers, and if done well, it's like a shield,
yes,
Yeah. If you forget 1 day, 2 days, there's holes in your shield, and then how are you going to be protected?
exactly.
So I keep reminding them, you need to do your prayers so that your shield is nice and strong.
Okay, and they actually do it. Oh, that's wonderful. That's wonderful.
Yes.
So thank you very much, Sharon.
You're
thank you very
welcome.
much for agreeing to come here to share with us all your wonderful stories. And she does have a lot more, okay, because you used to fly a lot when you're working with the airlines, and you have a lot. So we'll see if Sharon is free again. We'll invite her, and she can share with us about her experience when she was traveling around the world, staying in all the different hotels, and her fair share of experience. Okay, so again, today we don't have any sponsors. Boo hoo hoo. So no sponsors for today's program. It's fine. Well, if you do like our program, do make a contribution, because your contribution does matter. It will help us sustain with the running costs of having our online programs. All right. So on that note, thank you very much for tuning in. We will have another guest. If Sharon is not free, we'll have another guest next Thursday, and do look out for it, and do share with all your friends. All right. So take care and have a great week. Bye bye.